Welcome to the Ancient Mother podcast. This is a space for the thresholds, the births, the deaths, and the transformations between them. I'm Rachel Pinkerton, initiated priestess, soul midwife, and your guide through all of life's rites of passage. And I am also an author in the book, The Modern Day High Priestess. And I'm so excited to have my co author and friend, Gina GG Garris. Gina is a mystic, a shadow walker, and an erotic guide, a genderqueer woman and devoted student of the erotic and the divine. Gigi weaves shadow, pleasure, and ritual into portals of remembrance, inviting you to taste the holiness of your own aliveness. Gigi mentors in the realms of erotic blueprints, holistic sexual health, and the sacred ceremony of life. Gigi adores making messes, blowing bubbles, and eating cake for breakfast, and living outrageously. So, hello, Gigi. Thank you for being here today.
Hi, thank you for having me. I feel honored to be a guest here.
Yeah, I'm so grateful for you to come on and talk about this. It was such a great experience working with you and so many others on our book, The Modern Day
Mhm.
High Priestess. So let's get straight into it. What was your experience like working on this project? How did you become involved in it? And what was the writing process like for you?
Mhm. It truly was, an initiation. I did not expect it to be. I thought I would just type out my story and it would be easy, and it, um it was intense. It was intense to, remember the intricacies of the story and how to share it in a way that felt like it would be palpable and hopefully like transmitting an initiation for anyone who was reading it into their own wisdom as a priestess.
So, how did you decide what you wanted to write about, and what were some of the top messages or takeaways that you wanted readers to get from your chapter?
I think what ended up happening to me is I actually went into a bit of a contraction when I started to sit down to write. I had the story in my head that I didn't have anything to write about. And so in that, I got to kind of go into some deeper into the shadow spaces and then recognizing the pain actually that I had in the exile of my story of some of my initiations. And so it was really kind of going into the darkness that allowed me to come through with what I wrote in the chapter. And what I would want people to know is, or some highlights, is just the pure brilliance that we each carry that is a necessary thread of the tapestry of of humanity or of consciousness. That we are all so unique and individual, and our magic is unique, and our gifts are unique, and in that as a whole, we're all necessary. And that's part of my mission. That's part of what I stand for is each of us standing in our sovereignty in wholeness, and that all have our own brilliance, and may we all learn to shine in it and not feel like there's hierarchy. It's like
Mm, I love that. I know in your chapter, one of the terms that you use for yourself is the mythic thread keeper. And
right.
that resonates so much with what you're saying. How do you do that in practical terms? How do you people into their own sovereignty, but into also weaving this tapestry?
Yeah. I mean, I think the biggest thing is I hold the transmission. So part of the way that I guide is I am so fully me that it just allows others to be so fully them. And I'm a words of affirmation human. I really help people find their way. Whatever I'm reflecting back to them, they have within themselves. And so it's like how can they find that within themselves? And it's a
Mm.
dance because I can't tell someone what their magic is, but we can play and explore, and we do lots of experiments. We do lots of experiments in helping humans just like find their brilliance.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I can tell that you're somebody who can help others just be themselves because you embody that. I was really curious about the beginning of your chapter where you said that you didn't really choose the priestess path. It was kind of like an unraveling over time, like it was a slow remembering. And I
Mhm.
find that very fascinating because I can look at my own life and see, oh, there was this event and this event and this event that it led me to the priestess path. But yours seemed more um, organic. Can you describe kind of where you started before you realized that you were on a priestess path and how you got there?
I think that for me, the reason that that language came out is that I didn't know I was on it, but if I take a look back and I can see the path, I can see all the tiny little pebbles or stones or paths that I encountered that were like my tiptoeing in or my initiations or my remembrance, but I didn't recall them. I didn't know them at the time. So part of my story is that I wasn't raised in a house with faith or religion, and so I went to church with all my friends. And so what was interesting is every week I would be different. I would go to a Baptist one week and then Jehovah Witness and then Mormon and then Catholic. And so what was interesting to me is I kept hearing the same messages or similar messages, but something felt missing for me. And so
Mm.
until I was in my 30s, I knew something was missing. And I became a little bit of a bliss hunter, trying to find it, going to different churches. I'm having lots of different experiences of intimacy. And like, it was like it was a seeking, the thing that I knew was missing when I communed with the divine. Uh, like I found it. And in that, that to me was when I fully let the mother in, was my understanding of the priestess path.
Going along with that, one thing that I found really interesting in your chapter was that once you stepped into spirituality, there was still a part of you that kind of felt like an outsider still, and
Uh-huh.
you were kind of exploring sexuality and different aspects of spirituality that aren't really mainstream even in spiritual circles. So
Uh-huh.
can you talk about that and how it kind of guided you into like a newer version of your priestesshood?
Yeah, I mean, being a sexually liberated human, and I'm also a luxury sized human. So a luxury sized human who is completely comfortable with their body is not always accepted. And so in that lack of acceptance, there's a dissonance. Yeah, so, like, the initiation of not being included fully was part of my initiation to really stand in my full authenticity and my truth, and to then share the message of, I mean, in my belief, we are made of aliveness. We are made of the flow of the divine, and, I can't separate that from my sexuality, because that to me, that is my aliveness is my sexuality, and so that is why I feel like it's important for me to embody the liberated, sovereign space and transmit it. I mean, we can't shut down our sexuality and stand on wholeness.
Yeah, one of the big shifts that I have had to make because I was raised in purity culture
Mhm,
was that sexuality is a major part of your creative force. And without your creative force, you can't bring forward your magic or your healing on so many levels. Like, how would you guide someone into being more accepting of their bodies and of their sexual power and how that can influence their spirituality?
mhm. I mean, it's an interesting question because everyone is so unique in the way that we have our programming and our conditioning. And so there's not one way. One of the first ways, though, that I invite is to be with nature. to see the cycles and the way that nature just flows and the and aliveness, like everything in nature. I don't know if you know, but the flowers are the genitals of the flowers. And there's
Mm.
not, we do not shun flowers for blooming. As a matter of fact, we're usually in awe and how beautiful, and we don't shun flowers like a rose. Like, how open is a rose? Like, a rosebud is just as beautiful as a half open, as a fully open, as a like overly open. We just don't compare. Flowers and trees don't compare themselves to each other. They all just get to be and bloom in their grandness. And that to me is a place that I would guide people to start to. If they're going to compare themselves, can you compare yourselves with nature, not with other humans? And can you see what they do, what nature does naturally in their own cycle of becoming? And that is one of the places that I would start.
I have to say that flower analogy just completely shifted my own understanding, so I think that's amazing. Um,
Great.
so you actually wrote, "I began to understand that the darkness was not the opposite of light, it was the womb, and it was the
Yes.
origin." And I love that. Do you find that that is related to your sexuality, to your womb work, to your connection to the body?
Yeah, I mean, it's the place we all came from. It's it's one of the things that we have in common is that we start in the dark, we start in the womb. We start from an orgasm. I mean, even if we're made in a petri dish, there is the egg and the sperm, the miracle of creation starts in the womb. And so sexuality to me is in the shadow. To me,
Mm.
anytime we're working with sexuality, we're actually working in the shadow because our culture and our society has put it in the shadow. And um, that to me, shame, guilt, all of that is shadow, dense energy. And that is what I mostly work with.
Mm. So, what are some of the consequences that you see both at the individual level and maybe as a society that we're experiencing because of sexual repression or even over sexualization?
So many trespasses happen because of repression and oppression. So much of the pain that we carry in our bodies and our lineages is from just not proper education, the suppressing it. It's going to come out sideways. We become leaky. I really haven't met one human who doesn't have some sort of something around sexuality. Like, people who were raised with all the education have their own stuff. People who were raised, you don't talk about it. People who are raised in the purity culture. I've heard all these stories, and in it, it's almost like the thread of humanity is to wake up to uh, their own version of sexual liberation, whatever that is. But in the shadow or in the frequency of humanity, the threads, we all have some sort of something that is sticky, that is mucky, that we need to work through, and not everyone's available to work through it. And if they're not available to work through it, it comes out sideways.
So, when somebody is open to working on these issues with you, how do you begin? You mentioned erotic blueprints. What is that and how do you work it?
Mhm. Yeah, the erotic blueprints is a beautiful modality that, are you familiar with the love languages?
Yes.
Yeah, so it's like the love languages, but for eroticism, and it teaches us how we're wired. And so, do you want me to go through all 5 of them real quick? Do you want to
Sure. Yeah.
learn about
I would
them?
love to know.
Okay. So there's an energetic, and the energetic blueprint is wired for, tease and anticipation. And each blueprint has, of course, shadows and gifts. And one of the gifts of the energetic is that they can have orgasmic experiences without being touched. Very sensitive beings. You might be one. And and then their shadow is that they can get overwhelmed really easy, and so their turnoff could just like shut off like a light switch. And another energetic shadow is that they can have energetic hierarchy, which means they can believe that their way is the only way. Like sometimes in Tantra, they might feel like, well, oh, it's spiritual. And so it's better than just having, intercourse this way or something. So I had a lot of that when I when I first learned this modality. So that's energetic. And then the next one is sensual. And sensuals, they get turned on by all the senses. So one of the gifts that they can have is they can have orgasms with food or with music, with smell. They need to have transition space until they can fully open into sharing their bodies. And so that's just something to know, like a shower, a massage, a bath. They just need space before to relax because often their shadow is they get in their head. So they can always so be finicky. If there's dirty clothes on the floor, they can't relax. And so it's just good to know. It's so great to know if you're in a relationship with a sensual because you can help do things to get them to be able to not be in their head.
Mm.
And then there's the sexual, and the sexual blueprint is what we might see mainstream being. It's the naked bodies, sex is easy, straight intercourse, not a lot of fluff. And for them, sex is really fun and it's easy. And it's what I think mainstream would think that men typically are. They're like toasters, they're just ready to go for it whenever. Um, and our stats have said that that's not actually true. It's not all men are sexuals. And
Oh,
one of the shadows of the sexual is that they don't want to do all the other stuff. They just want to do it. And and that's sexual. And then there's kinky. The kinky gets turned on from all things taboo. And so something to think about with kinky is a vast world, but taboo is what's taboo to you. And so what I say is if someone isn't used to being erotic in any other way than maybe missionary, taboo might be at just a different position. Whereas for someone who has quite an erotic edge like me, my taboo is going to be very vast than maybe your taboo. And that
mhm.
doesn't we can't compare taboos. If it feels taboo then to you, then that's what's taboo to you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And then the shadow of the kinky is shame. They hold a lot of shame for just liking what turns them on. And the superpower or the gift is that they have such clear boundaries and vocal often with what they want. And so there's that. And then the last one is shapeshifter. And the shapeshifter is erotically wired with all of the blueprints. And they are like the maestros of intimacy. They're like the symphony.
Mm.
And um, one of their shadows is that they often feel like they're too much, and that and the other thing is that they're so good at what they do, they can meet their partner, a and so they often, like, are starving because they will just meet the partner with what their blueprint is versus getting their needs met. Yeah.
Mm. Interesting. It sounds like this kind of knowledge could really transform relationships, um, aside from personal spirituality.
Mhm.
So, if
Yeah.
somebody were to come to you and really have quite a lot of trauma, is that where you would start? Or do you need to do some kind of healing before they start kind of embracing their erotic blueprint?
Mm. So we look at more than just what your brain says, we look at what your body says, because your brain can tell you one thing and your body can tell you something different. I probably would start to explore trying to find out what someone's blueprint is first, but we can't really dive into that without, um, like, seeing what they're like, I do a lot of erotic detective work, so we're going to actually explore what trauma they have, what, societal programming they have, so it's more of a, it's more of a journey of wholeness versus just going straight into the sexuality piece.
Mm, I love
Mhm.
that. It's more of a whole person type
Yeah.
of perspective.
It's not about, like, we're actually, like, you're learning your own language versus trying to, like, pinpoint something that's wrong. Because none of us is broken. Like, none of us is broken even with our trauma. We just have blocks that are in the way. To me, what I found with these modalities is it gives us more permission to understand. We're just wired. We just speak different languages often. And so it's more around learning your own language and learning your partner's language, to see if you can communicate versus trying um, to go to symptoms. Yeah, it's like
Mm.
we can look at what's happening and what the blocks are, but we don't massively focus on the symptoms because we're trying to rewire our bodies for pleasure, not shut down.
Interesting. So this is actually something that I've been learning lately is that we can be wired to not really understand what pleasure is.
Mhm.
So what are some steps that you could take if you wanted to rewire yourself for pleasure?
Well, the first thing that I think I have to teach everyone is that we've got to find a way for you to give yourself permission to be in pleasure because often the permission piece is the thing that is the, like, it's not okay. And then the second one would be to expand your definition of what pleasure is, because often pleasure is associated with sexual pleasure. And pleasure is, um, pleasure is having your tea or coffee in the morning. Pleasure is when we lit our candles together and dropped in with breath. And pleasure is looking outside and seeing the birds in my bird bath and the aliveness and recognition that I get to feel inside. And so permission and then expanding your definition of pleasure are the two things that will literally could completely change your entire relationship with how you live.
Mm. So for the priestess, somebody who's coming into her priestess power, how can that connection to her body, whether it's through the blueprint or through shadow work, how can she physically connect to herself to come into her spiritual power more?
Hmm. My power is my relationship with my body. And so if there are parts of my body that I am unwilling to be with or to touch or to know deeply, then that is the place that I would invite starting is what is your relationship with your body? Do you know your body? Have are you intimately aware of all the parts of your body? And do you listen? And do you know where you've given your power away or power over? This is our temple. And so that would, to me, be the first place that I would invite someone on this path if they don't have a personal relationship and a deep relationship with their body. And I'm not talking exercise, food, that is part of it. But it's like, do you know your body?
Yeah, that resonates a lot in the work that I've done with women and even in my own personal growth. It was shocking to me to realize that so many women don't actually look at themselves in the mirror. They will do just enough to do their makeup or to make sure their clothes are on straight, but to actually look at the mirror at the self in full acceptance and love for the self. I remember trying to do that for the first time, and it was actually terrifying. And so to translate that into the work that I do with other women, women who are experiencing fertility issues, for example, part of that is a need for womb work and for self love, and even suggesting that you look at yourself in the mirror deeply into your eyes and tell yourself that you love yourself. It
Mhm,
would just bring people to tears.
mhm,
So, yes, I think that what you're suggesting is just so important. So many people that I interact with view their spirituality as the top three chakras, being,
mhm.
in the higher realms all the time. But yes, I love your description of coming deep within and doing the shadow work, and that is where your power lies. So I love that.
Yeah, I mean, and that is descending. I mean, to me, that is like it is one thing to ascend, beautiful, but to come down and in, to come down and in
Mhm.
and down and keep going. I mean, it can be truly scary for people. There's a lot of people that it has not been safe for them to be in their bodies. And so coming down and descending and feeling all the feelings is often what I help people do because a lot of people are afraid to feel. They don't want to feel all the
Mm,
feels. And that's interesting because some people might be open to pleasure, but they're not open to the icky feelings or they don't want to feel the shame or the guilt. And so it's like you can't have one without the other, which is again going back to repression. We can't just live in the top 3 chakras and be whole. I mean, we can, and it, some things crumbles at some point. Something's going to knock you, to force you to listen to your body. And I personally think that that is why we have so many autoimmune diseases right now,
mm,
is because we're not listening to our body. There is something truly here around we are the expert of our own body, and can we listen to what our bodies need? Can we listen to what we need?
So, one last thing that you had mentioned was that in addition to this erotic blueprint work, that you also do some death work, which of course is of interest to me as a death doula and a shadow walker. So, what does that look like for you?
My beloved always says that each breath is an opportunity to die. And so we're having a death rebirth with every breath. And I like to
Mm,
bring that in from a space of also expanding the definition of death. Um, because I probably work more with identity death, ego death, helping people step outside of who they used to be or step into who they want to be, because in that parts of us do have to die. I have been with humans as they pass. It is such a beautiful experience. So I feel like I help people with all sorts of versions of letting go and then the grief of the letting go of, and then also understanding that grief and aliveness, they can happen at the same time. So uh, grief and eroticism are actually very twined together in
explain that.
French. Yeah, in French, an orgasm is called le petit. Oh, what is death in French? Le petit. Oh, well, it's the little death.
Is it more?
Le petit moi, I believe is the translation, is the French version for orgasm. Because when you have such a release, when you go to such a high state of arousal and then you have a release, there is a death. Because the release is the release, and then you have a on the other side. And so orgasm is called the little death in French. Um, So to me, there's a space that, uh, well, sexuality is also another incredible place to open up to the divine, to let the goddess fill you and or move through you, and to fully surrender. Like when we're in high states of arousal or high states of trance work of consciousness through meditation or ritual, same thing. Like those parts get to be washed clean, and that is death, because it's letting go
Mm.
so that we can be here and become this newer version of who we be without the programming or the patterns or the threads that are binding us. Yeah. So that is to me how sex and death are very connected.
That's fascinating, and I love that. As a birth and a death doula, that is kind of my whole shtick is I really believe that the lessons of death and birth can be incorporated in our daily lives, that we are constantly dying unto ourselves and being reborn and evolving in this constant cycle. So to see that connection to your work is so fascinating. Thank you.
Yeah, and I love the sameness but with different language. Like it's not
Mhm.
exact overlay, but it's really, really similar work. And we just come in through
Mhm.
different doors and different lenses, which is the brilliance of your people. The people who need you will find you because of that vibration that you carry. And the same here. Like there will be a resonation
Yeah.
just because of the frequency that we each individually carry. And yes. Yes, yes, yes.
Yes, absolutely. And that's what I loved about both of our chapters, but also across most of the chapters in the book is
Yeah.
that there are so many similar threads. And even though our focus is on our own niche, our own individual work, it really comes together as this beautiful tapestry of helping people to transform through
Mm,
the death and rebirth cycle and come into wholeness. And I just
mm.
love that.
Yeah, me too. I love your relationship with the vulture, 'cause I work with the vulture a lot.
How do
As
you work with the vulture?
well, similar. The thing that I love about the vulture is that it doesn't kill, but it eats the death and the decay and the icky stuff, and it's so resourceful, and it lives off of it's just part of the fabric. It's like its job to eat the death and decay, and it's good at it. It does the thing. It just does its job, and it does the icky stuff, which I feel like is what I help people do, is to hold their hand to be with the icky stuff, and that they can see that it's important and powerful and necessary and beautiful and really sweet when you really sit with it, at how devoted the vulture is to the continuation of really existence of Mama Gaia.
Yes, that is exactly why I love the vulture. Um, they It's because of the vulture's work that the earth can transform what is dead and what no longer serves into something new and something beautiful. And I just think that is a lesson that we can all incorporate. And as we're experiencing the grief and the devastation of whatever suffering we're experiencing, we can also have that hope and that understanding that every suffering is an initiation, and that if we use the detritus of that death, we can grow and be rebirthed into something new. And that's what the vulture does. And
Oh,
I just think that the death elementals are such a beautiful part of our Earth experience. And
yeah.
actually, that was another thing in your chapter that I wanted to talk about that I almost forgot about. You mentioned Hecate coming to you. And what form did she come in? How did this happen?
Yeah. Um, I mean, and Borba Forba, like her bird is the vulture. So I've loved the vulture for a long time, but when I started working with Hecate is really when the vulture and I started communing. And I would say also that you and I are death elementals on one level because we're not afraid to go to those spaces. And, Hecate started knocking on my door. See, we actually had a really intense ceremony where a really intense being came forward. And one of my teachers said, "Go get Hecate and let Hecate guide you into really supporting these different entities." And so that's kind of how Hecate came in. I was guided to her, and then she's been on my altar for years. And just over time, it's a little bit like my priestess path, my initiations, just little nuggets here, little nuggets there. And then just some really big initiations have happened over time in ceremonies. So again, it's these little breadcrumbs that if I look back, I can identify.
Mm, amazing. Yeah,
Yeah.
when you described her coming to you as the um, Borboraforba, that's
Mhm,
actually a term that I have not heard before. So I loved learning about that. And it's called
mhm.
the filth eater.
She's the
And I
filth eater.
found, yes, I loved that so much, both in your work with sexuality and with death work, is just that eating away of the pain and the anything that no longer serves, because that's what makes space for the new
Mhm.
and for the rebirth. So
Yeah, and
beautiful.
something that I love about her, very specifically, is that it is such a neutral eating. And so, like, I've worked with other deities or beings that has vengeance or retribution or anger and, all of like sacred rage. All of that is beautiful to experience on one level. But this version of Hecate is just she's just hungry and she just eats. And I feel like that's the same as the vulture. Like it just is here. It doesn't judge. It doesn't care who killed it. It doesn't get into the story of it. It's just here to eat the decay. And it's really transformed my relationship with holding neutrality in the space of excavation. It just is. Darkness is just here.
Mm.
And can we make space? Can we just scrape the bones to make space?
Yeah,
So,
without judgment, just seeing how it actually assists us. I've I've loved this conversation. Can you share how people can find you and work with you if they're interested?
yeah. You're more than welcome to email me at GG, just the 2 letters, GG at blisscoach.com. Um, or you can find me on, Instagram or Facebook on socials.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for being here. It's been such a pleasure, and I can't wait to see what else you do with your work.
Thank you, Rachel. I look forward to staying in connection with you and, uh, yeah, maybe we'll do this again because it seemed like a rich conversation. So thank you so much.